Hey, we might be working.
Hey, let's go ahead and do it.
Those nerds! 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 Get those nerds! Nerds! Nerds!
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Bid Nerds. A little bit of a late start here. We have some technical issues this morning, which, whatever, that's what we do. We always have technical issues. This is your daily nerd out on the most interesting cars of the day and all the automotive enthusiast auction sites, including Bid Nerds. Not Bid Nerds. We don't have an auction site, including cars for sale on, I am just bumbling all over the place. Cars and Bids, Bring a Trailer, P-Car Market, and Hemmings and Rad for Sale, of course. I would give you guys a lower third, but I accidentally messed that up today, so we don't have lower thirds. You're just gonna have to take my word that that's Michael Deeb over there. He's an auction specialist or something. We gotta come up with a better title to him. He's not really a specialist on anything.
Special needs.
My name is John Polnick. I don't really have a title either, so there it is. We're just gonna go
Producer
with
John.
Producer John. We're just a couple of clods on the internet talking about cars, and how many of us yahoos are there on the internet talking about cars? There's so many people talking about cars.
It would take less time to name all the people who didn't start a podcast during the P word.
That is true, and of course I have. I don't know, hair from my dog stuck in my mouth or something.
I know
like
all
that.
of our audience think that this is just a seamless broadcast professionally done by elves with lots of experience in Hollywood. But actually, it's a miracle we're even on the air right now. So
I don't know how we've gotten this far. I really
no, I
don't.
don't either.
We have 100-something episodes.
That's
we keep
crazy.
doing this stupid thing.
And it didn't even count. The first 6 weeks we did the show, we did it on Instagram, and those shows aren't even in our library. Like there's the early years, the B-sides that nobody even sees anymore.
Right.
They're out there somewhere.
Somewhere in the ether.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's see here. So what we are going to do, what do we do on this show? What we do is we nerd out on all these cars. We pick the most interesting cars on the auctions because there's so many cars for you to go through. There's 100 cars on every one of these auction sites just have tons of cars that they're going through. So we narrow it down to just 5. Those are the most interesting cars of the day, and we'll tell you all about those cars. And then the fun part of the show is really when the rubber hits the road, when we make predictions on these cars. And that's where we really show that we don't know what we're doing. We are clearly complete morons.
What are you talking about, dude? You got a Yahtzee yesterday.
That was dumb luck. It really was.
Yahtzee alert. Dumb luck when you land right on the number. I think it's dumb luck when our numbers aren't more than 10% off. That's dumb luck.
Yeah, you're probably right. All right, well, let's get to yesterday's cars. We continue with some technical issues here, guys, so bear with this show. It is going to be a disaster.
If you're able to color in the image, the car that we started with was on BaT. It was the 1988 Porsche 911 Cabriolet. This is part of the spring collection from Driver Sourced out of Houston, Texas. They curated a grip of like a dozen cars that they are bringing to market on BaT, and this is one of those cars. Technically registered in California, but offered out of Houston, is this M491 Turbo Look Cabriolet with a G50 gearbox. But if that's not rare enough for you, this is also an M470, which means it is a spoiler delete Turbo Look car, and that makes it probably one of just a handful ever created. That is a super neat car.
Spoiler alert.
Lack of spoiler alert. So anyways, despite this car having like 80-something thousand miles, it was pretty clean. It had some paintwork done. But this is this is like the holy grail right now. It's a 3.2 with a G50, and it's got the wide body and no wings. So, if this doesn't get you going, then you don't really love Porsches. I thought this car would bring 94,000, held back by the fact that it had high miles and paintwork. You said 95, and this car sold for $95,000, making you the first Yahtzee of the week. So there you go. Well done, buddy.
Thanks, man. I actually called one right on the money. That's a pretty rare thing to happen.
The irony is, as we were signing off from that car, you were saying, "Oh, it'll probably land at 95.9. I should change my bid," and then you didn't, and you got the Yahtzee anyways.
That's funny.
Too funny. All right, we looked over at Cars and Bids. Doug DeMiro found a 1992 Mazda Miata with just 24,000 original miles in Greeley, Colorado. This car basically looked showroom new, and I really thought that this thing was actually going to break or come close to 20 grand. I thought for sure it would break 20 grand if it was on BAT, but I thought 15,000 would be the number here on Cars and Bids. You said 14. But when I guessed 15, I also thought this guy was leaving 10 grand on the table by putting it on the wrong platform. And I think I'm right. Our car sold for $12,250. And I'm sure this guy left 8 to 12 grand, 15 grand on the table. This car should have been on BAT, should have had better photos, and he would have got a lot more money on it. Imagine if he spent $1,000 on the photo and got 10 grand more money. He would have thought he was a genius.
Yeah.
Should have listened to our show.
It's true. I mean, there you go. You should always take our advice, which is don't take our advice. We don't know what we're talking about. Every now and then we get one of these right. This is one of those cars that absolutely should have. I could not agree with you more. This car deserved way, way, way more money and would have gotten it had the owner selected the right platform. He did not. Cars and Bids was not the right place for this thing.
No, I think he left a lot of money on the table. I agree with you, JP. We went over to P-Car Market, talking about bad platforms. And we looked at a 2002 911 C4S with like 60-something thousand miles in Tracy, California, somewhere in the valley here, not far from me. I'll probably drive through there today on my way out to Vegas. This car did not have an IMS bearing done. It was in seal gray, which is, I mean, even if it's not your favorite color, JP, this is a popular color for that generation of car. And it is a C4S. So I think there should be some value here. I said $38,000, and I predicted it would fail to sell at that number and would wind up in the deal tank for like 45 grand. You took the over at 39, and I'm going to brag about this one. This car stalled out at $35,996 and wound up in the deal tank for $42,500. So I'd say the bid nerds were all over that one. What do you think, JP? Was that Nostradamus?
Yeah, boy, P-Car Market is not able to sell 996s. They've had really good success with 997s, but 996s, that is a miserable place to try to sell your 996. Look, don't do it. This is if you have a 996 and you want to sell it somewhere, P-Car Market will have a bunch of guys with an East Coast accent really pushing you hard to try to list that car because they'll get it there. They'll get it on their site today. Come on, let's list your Porsche. They will grind, and they will bring it to market quickly, but it's not going to bring the money. Maybe it brings the money in the deal tank because they'll go grind a bunch of people on the classified side.
They'll grind the consignor. That's who they're going to
grind the consignor down and try to get you to lower your price. This car, this car should easily have gotten nearly 40 on BAT. I mean, just like no problem. People are like, here's a wheelbarrow of money. How do I give you my cash? It's a C4S. They're the hottest thing.
The next question from the platform should have been paper or plastic.
Yeah. The fact that P-Car Market failed miserably on a C4S to get over 35 is that's just embarrassing, and I feel bad for the seller. Hey, I feel your pain, dude. I've been there. So a lot of times
your car didn't even make 30, did it?
It did not. That's correct. And here's the thing, and for people that don't know what we're talking about, I have sold a car or attempted to sell a car. I did sell my car on P-Car Market, but it did not bring the money that it should have. I left probably $10,000 on the table because I made the mistake of using P-Car Market. That's a personal, anecdotal, experience. So your experience may vary. This is not a financial advice show, but I will tell you from firsthand experience, not a good idea. So anyways, let's move on off of that. I think we've kind of made our point there. What else did we talk about yesterday? There was some other cool
BAT stuff. Has a bigger audience, and in so proving, we look at this 1988 Saab 900 SPG. Cool car, but this one was cosmetically challenged and had a lot of miles on it. This era of Saabs are trending in the right way. I think you mentioned that Magnus Walker is going to highlight one of those on his new platform show. I thought this car was cool, but it's not the way I would want mine. But whatever, it's everybody's get their own personal choice. This guy mobbed his out and blacked out everything. And I just think that these cars are really neat the way they arrived from Sweden. So I thought 14,000 might get it done. You thought 15, but neither one of us thought this car would go any higher than that. And we were kind of correct. Our car kind of stalled out and then sold at just $12,250. I'd still say that's pretty well bought. Congratulations to the new owner. I think you've got a little money left in the tank to spend and sort of fix it up. You could sort of bring it back to original and make it really cool, or take your idea and throw a wad of cash at it and make it like something cool like a Safari. Neat car, and we'll see. They're kind of having their moment.
Yeah, there's no way to get this thing back to stock. I mean, you're not going to get the trim back to the gray. So you really got to go over the top or just live with it. I think $12,000 is all the money for this kind of beat up Saab SPG. I think that's a testament to BAT. If this same exact car were on Cars and Bids
or Craigslist,
or Craigslist, you'd be lucky to get $5,000 for it. So somebody
7,000 would be all the money.
Yeah, exactly. So this is definitely where they got all the cash. Anyways, all right. Very cool.
All right, another surprising result, JP, our 1973 Alfa Romeo Montreal that was on Bring It Trailer. There was true mileage unknown, so it was hard to tell how old this car was because it's been repainted. The carpets and the interior and the paint all look good, but there's some shots that they took up the carpets like in the footwells, and it looked like they had maybe welded in new floorboards because this car might have suffered from rust. All these early Alphas were made with steel that was purchased from Russia that had not been corrosion treated, and Alfa just took this steel and just assembled the cars without addressing that. And so a lot of these cars suffer from corrosion and tin worm, and it looks like this car has been sort of brought back, but not to a high standard. And so this just never really threatened to be like one of those $80,000 to $100,000 examples. I still thought it might see 70 grand. You took a much more conservative tack and said 55, and you were closer. Our car sold at $60,000. So you got 3 wins at a Yahtzee to my 2 wins. That C4S is still in the deal tank if you want it. There you go.
Hey, I got a question for you. This really surprised the heck out of me. One of the things that drives me nuts about modern American cars, particularly the muscle ones, is the fake air ducts on the hood on the Dodge Chargers and the Mustangs and stuff like that. And I always I love to call them the automotive equivalent of a lie. It's just so lame. It's the dumbest thing I think a manufacturer can do. Even though Porsche has done it and pretty much every manufacturer has, it really surprised me looking at these pictures. Looking at that NACA duct, I think that's how you pronounce it, NACA duct?
Yep.
The air duct on the hood of this car, which I thought looked really, really cool. You get to the close-up and you notice that, look at that, it's a fake. It's just, it's plugged up. It doesn't actually, it's not functional.
Isn't
what
that
the
crazy?
hell?
Yeah. I don't know.
What's going on?
If we bought one of those, Rafi would make that functional and literally do some sort of ram air thing into the 4 carbs on that and make that like really hot cold air induction system. The trouble is 2 of those carbs are probably in front of that duct. So I don't know how he would do it, but he'd figure out a way.
I don't know. You just think it's like at the very least get some air in the engine cabin or something like that. I mean, make it functional.
Seriously.
I don't need you to go through the trouble of putting it on the hood. Come on, guys. Come on, you Italians. All right. I guess that wasn't a 73 Alpha. That was a 73 Charger. All right. Here we go. Let's get. Okay. So that was yesterday's cars. That's how bad we are at predicting the prices. Every now and then we get one right, and that's kind of fun. But we've got some cars today. So let's get to the cars today. Make sure you hit the subscribe, like, and notification button because we love to say that you want the freshest nerds. You don't want the old stale nerds. You want the freshest nerds that are happening right now. And the only way to know that that the Bid Nerds are on live is to go ahead and have that notification button, because then YouTube will let you know that we're doing this thing, which we do every Monday through Friday at the 9 o'clock hour when we have our test together. All right, what cars do we have today, Michael D? We got some pretty cool
JP,
ones
what do you have teed up?
Well, it's kind of a versus thing here. We've got a Ferrari versus a Japanese Acura.
All right,
I think let's start with the Acura. I really like.
Okay, cool. All right, so Doug DeMiro sourced a 1991 Acura NSX with just 13,600 original miles. 5-speed manual, 3-liter V6, VTEC, 270 horsepower, lightweight. These cars probably weigh 2,900 pounds. There is a lot to love here. This particular car is special because of the incredibly low miles and the super attractive and desirable triple black paint job. Also, it's worth mentioning this car has no modifications. This is basically bone stock. So what more would you want? This is literally a collector grade first generation of the NSX. This car revolutionized the way sports cars and exotic cars were not only assembled, but how the driver interfaced with the car and could use it on a daily basis. At the time, the Porsche was a little underpowered. At the time, the Ferrari was overly exotic and hardly drivable, with a footwell that came into the pedal box area, forcing the driver to literally put both of his feet to the right side of his body to be able to work the 3 pedals. The shifter was garbage too. I'm talking about the 348. The NSX showed up with an aluminum frame, lightweight construction, and the drivability of a Honda Civic, and literally set the supercar world on its ear. The Lamborghini Countach was like, kiss my ass, I'm out of here. That car was done. So basically, Honda, through the Acura NSX, changed the game. And we are forever indebted to them because it's way more drivable. So anyway, there you go, JP. If you want a brand new one, this is about as close as you get. 13,000 miles offered to us out of Carver, Minnesota, in beautiful Berlina black with black leather interior. I would also assert before I hand it over to you that if this car were on BAT, it would be $100,000 car, and I do not think it's going to make $100,000 on Cars and Bids. This is a huge mistake. Again, 10 to maybe 20 or $25,000 left on the table by choosing the wrong platform for what is a truly special car.
A lot of times people say, oh, well, you basically say, oh, if you choose the wrong platform, you're going to leave money on the table. And then the next thing after that is like, well, the only platform you guys ever recommend is BAT, so why even bother talking about the other platforms? And I think that's a good point. But this is one of those cars where you could say, you know what? If you had this car, the downside of BAT is always the fact that you have to wait so long to get in their queue.
Yeah, 4 or 5 weeks right now.
Yeah, you're a month out to get your car up for sale, and then so call it at best your car is going to be sold in a month and a half. Whereas if you just try to sell your car on a classified ads or Auto Trader or something like that, it'll probably take you a couple of weeks to sell your car. This thing is the kind of car where there are options. This is a car that obviously you get to market much more quickly on Cars and Bids, but you just said you're going to leave money on the table. I agree. P-Car Market, no freaking way would you try it there. Hemmings, you'd be an idiot. But Rad for Sale would be perfect for this car. Rad for Sale does not have as nearly as big an audience as BAT or even Cars and Bids, but boy, the people that are watching that thing are watching for stuff like this. They want the really super primo 80s and 90s car, and this is as blue chip as you get. And if Rad for Sale had this, they would go nuts with it. They would promote the heck out of it.
Just by having a registered bidder on Rad for Sale, those people are already saying, I fervently agree with how cool this car is. And you realize that they would appreciate it to its full retail value. And that's a pretty hot take. But certainly it's worth. The biggest audience is on BAT, and a car that is of this nature with such low miles and such high collectability. I mean, you're talking about an NSX that's worth more than it was when it was brand new. You got to go to the biggest audience and get the most amount of money for it. I think this car is going to suffer if it even makes the reserve. It's going to suffer by being on Cars and Bids.
Pretty lousy pictures too. At least I think the amateur photographer with their cell phone got lucky and they went out to shoot this thing and it happened to be a slightly overcast day. They put the car in the shade, so that's good. The pictures are honest at least, and there's lots of them, so you can kind of get a real sense of what the car is. And they're taking pictures of some of the blemishes and stuff like that, which there really aren't any to speak of. There's a couple little scratches. Who cares?
Really nice car.
Yeah, but a photography package for this car would have really served it well as well. And again, that's top down. This is what we see time and time again on Cars and Bids. They just don't care. You could etch a sketch a picture of your car, and they're like, "This is great. Let's go."
All right.
Yeah. Where's it going to land?
JP, if this car were on BAT, I predict it would be 110 to 120. But here on Cars and Bids, my bid is $90,000.
Where is it at now, and how much time is there?
72.5.
Yep.
with 3 hours to go on just 10 bids.
And your bid is what, 90?
90, yeah.
I'll go 89. I think it's going to stall out somewhere in the 80s.
Wow,
it's
that's
just
crazy.
you don't see big numbers past at the end in cars and bids. BAT you see, and a lot of times on Rad for Sale you see these late races after the auction closes. It just keeps going for another half hour. This one,
okay, at 89, do you think it sells? Is the reserve there?
It's a good question, and I say no. If it
no
does, that's a
sale at
bargain.
89.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
the car
I'd
has
say
low
so,
miles,
too.
a low mile black on black. Come on, man, this is
Yeah,
the car everybody wants.
that's bitching.
Yep.
I love also that it doesn't even have chrome wheels. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
as it came from Honda, and I really like that.
Yep.
All right, or you could have this 1997 Ferrari 355 Spyder with a 6-speed manual that has just 25,000 miles, again offered to us by Driver's Source Spring Motoring Collection out of Houston, Texas. This car allegedly was owned originally by Herbie Hancock. What's more Radwood than Herbie Hancock? Get him to play while this car rolls onto the grass at the next Radwood. But this car is really awesome. I was hoping Reese was on here. I wanted to ask some technical questions about this car. There's some neat spec to this, JP. Consider this: 4-wheel disc brakes that are all done by Brembo. 6-speed manual, limited slip differential. This car utilized a 5-valve head. Do you remember that when they came out with that? Audi was doing it and Ferrari was doing it. And this was the first Ferrari to have that 5-valve head. The question I had for Reese, because I know he's kind of a gearhead, I also think, but I am not certain, that this was the first Ferrari V8 to use a flat plane crank. And as such, these cars revved very easily to 8,000 RPM. And if you've ever heard one of these where the guy either altered the mufflers or took the cats out, one of these things being run to redline literally sounds like a race car. If the exhaust is sort of uncorked a little bit, it literally will send shivers down your spine. And that's part of the reason why these are such great driver's cars and why they bring such a premium. Big thing here is that it's a manual. It's also an off color. And I'm not sure if somebody would pay a premium for this shade, whatever it's called, Rosso Monza. It's a metallic dark red color. It's kind of like the Porsche thing where an unusual color could get a premium, but most people just want their Ferrari in resale red. So this is an interesting lot. We'll see what happens here. A lot to like, though. It's a nice car. What do you think?
Yeah, the sound that this car makes, you mentioned, is just otherworldly. And I'm not talking about when you're rapping it out. It's otherworldly when you're just driving around in traffic and you're below RPMs. It's like... It sounds like you're braking your riding lawnmower. When you drive one of these around in traffic, they sound horrible. It sounds like you are braking the car. The car is pissed off if it's not fully wrapped out at red line and screaming down the freeway. When you drive one of these around, you're just like, it's like clattering and clunking, and you're just like, oh my God, I'm braking it. Something's breaking. It's going to be really expensive. Oh my God, it's breaking. And they really do, man. I tell my story. The first time I ever drove one of these, I was considering buying the car, and I was in a parking lot, and I stopped for a moment, and I started driving. I was maybe going 5 miles an hour. 5 miles an hour in a parking lot at a mall, and the car did a full 180-degree spin. But it was like this crazy, slow motion spin. It's like, why is the car what the heck is going on? My brain couldn't figure it out. And it turned out that when I was stopped to check my map or phone or something like that for 5 minutes, the overflow valve from the radiator
Piss coolant
right in front of the rear wheel. So I had a puddle of coolant that I drove through, and it just put slime all over the tires, and the thing literally spun at 5-10 miles an hour. I'm like, okay, I don't want this. This is not for me. I can't handle the stress.
Can't happen in an air-cooled Porsche, could it, JP?
It cannot. Yeah, you might leak blinker fluid out, but certainly not coolant. Look, this car is one of the most beautiful cars of all time, and of course, it's
absolutely.
Cabrio. It's a Spyder.
Amen.
That's got my name written all over. I like this. This is not my favorite color in general. Any kind of off shade of red, kind of burgundy-ish, I typically don't like, even though I own them, and there are certain ones that I make exceptions for. I would make an exception for this one. This one is really cool. I think it's pretty darn badass. Love this car. Where's it going to land? It's on BAT. It's definitely the right platform.
I know, but it didn't really get it did get some bids overnight. It got just a little bit of love overnight. It was at 70 grand, JP. It's got an hour and 15 minutes to go, but it's up to 74,355. Duh. I think this car is worth. I think it's worth some money. It's low miles. I'm going to say
service
I feel like
up to date and all that kind of stuff.
I suppose. I can't remember. Actually, I don't remember reading about the service, which is weird. It's the first thing I look for on a Ferrari.
Yeah, usually we were Ferrari. The belts were done yesterday.
Yeah, were the belts done or were they not done? Okay. April 2021 timing belt service was performed by the selling dealer. So, yeah, the belts are done and they're brand new. So, I'm going to say $94,000. I'm not saying that Herbie Hancock is going to do a premium. I'm saying manual Ferraris are starting to go nuts, and that's why this is low miles, off color, stick shift, and $94,000. There you go.
100 grand. I'm going way over. I think it is a 355 with a manual in a weird color. This car has to bring all the money. I mean, dude, we're seeing. Yeah. I mean, we've seen coupes go in the $120, $130 range.
You know what? You're not far off. If this was a coupe with 25,000 miles, this would be over $150,000 car at this point. Yeah. They've really started to jump. It's a weird time, man.
Yeah, and I think that it's spring and people are looking for that open top experience, and why not do it with one of the most beautiful cars ever made? This thing is just fantastic. Bring a mechanic with you, because you're going to need it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's jump over to Hemmings for just a second to see what the pleated pants have offered us. And lo and behold, it's the bad guy car, as JP likes to call it. A 1990 Mercedes-Benz 560 SEL. This car has 140,000 miles on it, and it's offered out of Dallas, Texas in triple black, the perfect bad guy car if ever there was one. This car is powered by, I made some notes, a 5.6-liter V8 that pumps out about 240 horsepower and, more importantly, about 290 pound-foot of torque. It's all channeled through a really, really, really lame 4-speed automatic transmission that Mercedes-Benz designed themselves in-house. Can you imagine that they had it? That was like one of their biggest motors, and they didn't outsource the gearbox to one of the great German brands like Getrag or ZF. This is no wonder this car has sort of suffered. They were built to a high standard back in the period, but there's plenty of these cars around, and so finding one that's probably been repainted out of Dallas, Texas with 150,000 miles on it is probably not worth any money. If this car had 14,000 miles on it, then we'd be talking about maybe $30,000 or $40,000 car. But anyway,
hold on. I gotta cut you off here. It's not even about the car. This is one of those things where we talk about platform. I'm trying to go through the pictures of Hemmings, and this is what I'm getting, guys. So I'm trying to show you the pictures, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, are you a robot? And it wants me to go through a CAPTCHA thing and all this stuff. I mean, how many? Look, that's it. We are never reviewing a Hemmings car on. That's it. This is the last car we're ever talking about on Hemmings. If there's one thing I hate in the world, it's CAPTCHAs, and this is not acceptable. I'm not doing it. I don't even care what this car is going to bid for. I say we don't even talk about it. I'm clicking out of this. Hemmings, screw you. We're done with you. That's the last straw. Can't handle it.
I was just about to say the whole reason I picked this car was to see how the Hemmings crowd, who's domestic heavy, could handle a European car. Could they get any money for it? Yeah. And you can't even show somebody the photos. Yeah. So I have just deleted that car, and we are moving on to
we only have 4 cars today. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. We are done with Hemmings. Their auction site is worth less.
Do you remember Mel Brooks? Mel Brooks in History of the World does the Moses thing where he comes down with 3 tablets and he walks down and he says, I bring you these 15. And he trips and one of the tablets falls and breaks. He goes, these 10 commandments.
Classic. Yeah, that's Hemmings was there when that happened in real life. Yeah, they were.
That's exactly right. They were there. Oh my God. Okay. All right, so check this out, JP. I picked this car just for you. 1962 Chevrolet Corvair Monza Coupe with a 4-speed manual. And the audience might ask, why would he pick that car for JP? He only loves Porsches. Well, this car has an air-cooled flat 6 that's 2.4 liter, powered by a 4-speed manual, and its rear engine. I mean, this car, JP, come on. This is everything you love, right?
Everything I love. I love a Chevrolet badge.
Ralph Nader killed this car, but this is interesting. Sorry to interrupt you, JP.
That's all right.
This car never really competed with the 911 when it first came out. This was really, if you were to suggest that it was made as a sports car to compete with Porsche, it would have competed with a 356. But it's interesting to see how the air-cooled flat six performed in the Chevrolet. And the Monza was the higher spec with bigger carburetors, I think, and maybe a hotter cam. A 4-speed manual instead of a 3-speed. But this thing still had hubcaps. These cars were very sloppy handling. But it was just considered a budget, fun, sporty car for Chevy at a time frame when they made cars the size of boats. Ralph Nader thought these cars were dangerous because they didn't have front sway bars, believe it or not. That was the main argument that Nader, as the consumer activist in the United States, went to Congress and petitioned this car be stricken from the dealerships because he considered it the most dangerous American car on the road. And that just torpedoed sales in the end of the 60s. Instead of selling like 250,000 cars, they sold like 100,000 cars, and Chevrolet quickly killed it off. These cars, I always thought, would have their moment and become highly collectible, and it's never happened, JP. This car is sitting at $5,000 on one bid, and it's a decent car. It's not perfectly original, but it's all there. I mean, my goodness. Anyway, so what's your take on the Monza and its like scarlet letter?
I have never. It's odd to admit this, but I've never driven one. I mean, it's a rear-engine car with a flat six. How cool is that? That should be. I mean, at the very least, it should be interesting to drive. This one has a manual. It probably is fun and interesting to drive. I think this is one of those cars. You know, we always have this constant conversation about the Cabrio thing. This is a car that I think you definitely want with a drop top because it's not going to perform well. The coupe isn't going to be fast around corners, so who really cares? This is a car to cruise in and at least have that rear engine sensation, which is just fun to be pushed around corners rather than pulled. So find one that's got a convertible top and have fun with it. This car does look like it's got some rust and some other issues.
It's not perfect. Those front seats are not the original seats and all this other stuff, but anyway, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, but if at this price point, if it's cheap like this, it'd be fun to cruise. This is a great Route 66 car or whatever. I mean,
oh yeah, I think it'd be a great Vegas car in the winter. I would not want this car in the summer, but I think it'd be really fun to take the bumpers off, put on some 15-inch Fuchs, put a prototipo on it, and then get some red Pegasus and slap them on the side of the car.
Why
and
not?
then just have people bring it to Cars Un Cafe and have everybody go up to you and be like, what in the hell are you smoking, Dave? And I'll be like, check it out, man.
That is a fantastic plan. It might
it's
just be cheap enough that you could do that. This car belongs on that dog meat platform Hemmings. This is a car for that crowd. But I don't know. Where's it going to land? What do you think?
Well, JP, I have no faith in this auction because it only has the one bid. I think this should be a $12,000 car, but I am not confident it's going to get another bid. I hope somebody's out there waiting, and I'm going to leave my bid at $12,000. But it's weird. I don't think we've ever reviewed a car on BAT that an hour or three before it sold was sitting on just one bid. So there you go. It's a first.
I suspect this is one of those situations where you got to read the small print, i.e. the comments.
I tried to. Yeah.
Really? And so there's no indication of what the heck's going on in the comments as to why it's failing to move?
I didn't read them all, but I couldn't find it when I did my review last night.
Obvious thread there. Yeah, I mean, something's up. This should be a more expensive car. So, you know, I suspect it's the rust issues or whatever, but who knows? Yeah, I'm going to bid 10, and if it hasn't moved at all, that is really weird. Will there be a late stage rally on this? Is there another person in the room that wants this? And at 10, will it even sell? I got to think that doesn't hit a reserve, right?
I think it will.
You think it will?
Yeah,
okay.
No, it's a no reserve car, so it's going to sell. So I think I think your bid is safe.
All right. Well, there you go.
All right, JP. Last car. Yeah, last car today is the 2008 BMW M3 convertible with the 6-speed manual. This one is powered by the 4-liter V8 transmission that makes some really respectable power. It's 414 horsepower and 300 pound-foot of torque. These cars had a retractable hardtop in the convertible, guys, so when the top is up, you'd be forgiven for thinking it was a coupe. They have electronic damper control, so this has kind of an electronic active suspension. But the big thing here is that you get the BMW M3 with a V8 V8 and a 6-speed manual. And listen, as these become more and more dying breeds, I think cars like this are going to go up in value. Our car has just 31,000 miles and is offered to us out of Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, and it's an attractive car in the silver colorway. So, is this car going to bring big money? It's sitting at $27,000 on 10 bids.
That is more money than I've seen for one of these in a while, so they are coming up. The E90 BMWs are the last great BMW, especially in the M3. There's no BMW after this generation of car that I would even remotely consider owning. I mean, every BMW after this is...
They went to forced induction.
Yeah, everything's just garbage. Yeah. I mean, look, you could make an argument for the M1 or something like that, or 1M, which is a pretty great car, but I'm not interested. I don't like the way it looks. This car, these things really are so much fun to drive. They are a reliable powertrain. They do have that. They do have one kind of problem. The rocker arms or something like that. There's a major service that's got to be done on these that can be really bad. But as long as that's taken care of, you're pretty good to go. These are, I mean, with the drop top, the hardtop drop top is great for best of both worlds. For people who are the cabrio phobes out there, they can have their hardtop.
Yeah, BMW has addressed that, so there'll be less people on JP's shit list.
Yeah. But, coupe or convertible version of this car, you're going to have a great time. This is an interesting car. Made an interesting time. What year is this one again? 2000?
08.
This is an 08. So people constantly have the conversation when they're talking about BMWs versus Porsches versus even, muscle cars. How much horsepower do you have? Horsepower. This car is a great indicator of why horsepower really isn't the main metric. This thing has how much horsepower? 400 what?
414 and just under 300 pound-foot of torque.
414 pounds of torque. At the same time in 2008, you had a base 997 that had 325 horsepower. So this thing has almost 100 horsepower on a 997. 100, guys. And yet they both achieve identical track times, a base 997. Right. So, horsepower isn't everything. Where the horsepower is and how it's used is really important. And it used to be with M3s, they had lower horsepower and they did all those things. This car, it's hard to call this an M3 because it's so big by comparison of the
so heavy.
Yeah, and heavy. But
it's a retractable hardtop. Oh my God, what a waste of space.
Yeah, but you're still going to have a great time in this car. This is still one of the best handling cars ever made. I really love the styling of this car. It's just a classy looking car, especially in a basic kind of silver color like this. I call it a matrix package. Any car that's like silver on black or black on black is a car that could be a background car in some, in a movie where it could take place at any time. You could have this next to a 60s 911 that's silver on black, and it's just going to look fantastic. So get a pleather outfit and drive this thing around. What's it going to land? Yeah.
$35,000. I think this one's got a little bit of sky above it. Where are you at?
How many miles again?
31,000.
31,000 miles. Yeah, I think that's a good bid. That would be more money than we've seen for one of these in a long time. It's in the right place for it, I suppose. So this is BaT, right?
It is.
Yeah. So 35,000. That makes my job tough, but I'm going to go under just because these have been soft, and it is a convertible. So I'm going to say 34. I'm going to be chicken S and be right underneath you. Park right underneath you, and
not the first time it happened.
I mean, look a 997 that we were just talking about. The 997s of the same generation used to be a $35,000 car with this kind of miles. Now a 2008 997 with 30,000 miles would probably, even a base one would probably bring in the mid to high 40s. So why wouldn't this thing bring mid to high 30s? That does make sense.
All right, JP, I got to run. I'll see you in Vegas.
All right, guys, thanks for watching. That's another clunky edition of Bid Nerds. Come on back tomorrow, and we'll try it again. Hopefully, we'll have our technical stuff in order. Safe travels.
Get the nerds!